Good morning, dear students. I'm Dr. Kiran Deshwal, Assistant Professor English. In my previous video, I taught you the story Three Questions, composed by Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy. Now we will see what happens next. So let me sum up what we read in our previous lecture. Uh, the story runs like this. There was a king in a certain kingdom. Once he Once he thinks that if I know the right time for every action and the right people to listen to, and what is the most important action, I will never fail in my endeavors. So he decides to know the right time to begin any kind of action and the right people whom he should give priority and the most important time. So he makes an announcement throughout in his kingdom that whoever will give the answer of his three questions, he will give a reward to that particular person. So he receives various answers from various learned men. So for the uh, first answer, for the question of the first answer, it was answered to him that he should draw up a table in advance. And what was the answer of the next question? We will see here in this video lecture. But then again others said there were some things which could not wait to be laid before a council, but about which one had at once to decide whether to undertake them or not. So people suggested that the king should appoint a council to know the right time for every action, but some people opposed it by saying that we have to take decision instantly for some actions. So it is impossible to put the matter before the council. So it will be time wasting. So, but in order to decide that, one must know beforehand what was going to happen. First, one has to know that what is going to happen. Only then one can take any action. So it is only magicians who know that. Only magicians can tell that what is going to happen. And therefore, in order to know the right time for every action, one must consult magicians. Equally various were the answers to the second question. The second question, which is who are the right people to listen to? Some said the people the king most needed were his counselors. It is obvious that counselors are the most important people, but others opposed it and they suggested that the priests uh, are the most important people for the king because who will perform the worship without the priest. Others said that the doctors are the most important people for the king, while some said that the warriors, because for a king, warriors are most necessary. Without them, he is unable to run his kingdom. So, answers were various. Some gave importance to counselors, some gave importance to priests, and some gave importance to doctors and warriors. To the third question, which is what is the right time to begin every action? What is the most important thing to do? As to what was the most important occupation, some replied that the most important thing in the world was science. Others said it was a skill in warfare, and others again that it was religious worship. So these answers were also different. Some gave importance to science, and some gave importance to skill in warfare, and some gave importance to religious worship. All the answers being different, as we have seen that uh, the answers didn't match. Answers for every question were being different. So the king agreed with none of them. He was not satisfied with the answers of these questions. That's why he gave the reward to none. But still, he wanted to know the right answer, but is still wishing to find the right answers to his questions. Hence, the king decided to consult a hermit, the hermit who is widely renowned for his wisdom. And the fact was that the hermit used to live in a wood. which he never quitted, and he always lived there from morning to the evening, and he received none. It was his principle, or we can say that it was his rule, not to receive rich people. He used to receive only common folk. So the king put on simple clothes. He became a simple man, and before reaching the hermit's cottage, he dismounted from his horse. So he abandoned his horse and his royal um, robes, or can say royal dress. Leaving his bodyguard behind, he went on alone. So the king decided to meet the hermit alone and in a very simple way. So he left his bodyguard and horse behind. When the king approached, the hermit was digging the ground. At the moment when the king reached the hermit's cottage, the hermit, or we can say that the saint, was digging the ground in front of his hut. He used to live in a simple way in a hut. Seeing the king, he greeted him and went on digging. As a courtesy, he greeted the king and kept on doing his work of digging. The hermit was frail and weak. He was very weak and fragile, and each time he stuck his spade, he was digging the ground with a spade, and each time when he stuck his spade into the ground and turned a little earth, he breathed heavily due to weakness. He was very weak, that's why he was unable to dig the ground in a proper way. It was very tough and hard for him to dig the ground continuously. So the king went up to him and said, the king tells him his questions. I have come to you, wise hermit. The king addressed him as a wise hermit and said, I have come to you to ask you to answer three questions. The first question is, how can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? The second question is, who are the people I most need, and to whom should I therefore pay more attention than to the rest? And the third question is, and what affairs are the most important and need my first attention? So these are the three questions of the king: the right time and the right thing at the right time. To know, he wanted to know the right thing at the right time, and the most important people, and most important occupation. The hermit listened carefully to the king but answered nothing. He did not answer any of the question of the king. He just spat on his hand and recommenced digging. He went on digging. He continued his work of digging without answering the king's questions. So, you are tired, said the king. Let me take this spade and work a while for you. We know that the hermit was very weak. It was very hard for him to dig the ground. So the king pitied on his condition and said that, "O hermit, you are tired," said the king. "Let me help you. Let me take the spade and work a while for you." So he offered a hand of help to the hermit, and the hermit said that thanks to the king, and giving the spade to the king, he sat down on the ground. When he had dug two beds, the king stopped and repeated his question. For a long time, the king also helped the hermit, and when he had dug two beds, the king stopped. He took a pause in between his work and repeated his three questions to the hermit. He was very curious to know the answer of his questions. The hermit again gave no answer, but rose, he stretched out his hand for the spade and said, "Now rest a while and let me work a bit." The hermit thought that the king might have been tired. That's why he is repeating his questions again. And the hermit said that perhaps you are tired. Let me give the spade and let me dig a bit. You should rest. But the king did not give him this spade and continued to dig. But the king was adamant on his work and he wanted to know the answers of his three questions. So we can say that to help the hermit or to impress the hermit, he went on digging. He continued his work of digging. 1 hour passed and another. The time kept on passing. The sun began to sink behind the trees, and the king at last stuck the spade into the ground and said, and somehow the king became irritated and he said that I came to you, wise man, for an answer to my questions. If you can give me none, tell me so, and I will return home. The king is disappointed. He didn't receive any answer throughout the day. He went on digging. He was doing the work of digging, but the hermit answered none of his questions. That's why the king said that if you can't give me any answer of my questions, tell me so, deny me, and I'm home. Thanks for watching. We will continue in our next video.